Right now, roughly 18 million elevators are operating around the world. Millions of people are standing inside them at this very moment, staring at their phones, watching floor numbers tick by, trusting a machine they've never inspected to hold them in the air. And every single one of those people, at some point in their life, has had the same thought. What if the cables snap? What if this box just falls? It's the most universal fear in modern architecture, and it has been the setup for 1,000 movie scenes. The hero grabs the rail, the cable sparks and snaps, the elevator plummets, screams fill the shaft. It's terrifying. It's cinematic. And it's almost entirely wrong. This is the real story of what happens inside an elevator when every cable breaks, and why the answer has been the same since 1854. Let's start with the cables themselves, because most people dramatically underestimate what's holding them up. A typical passenger elevator is not hanging from a single cable. It's supported by 6 to 8 independent steel wire ropes, each one capable of holding the full weight of the car and its maximum passenger load on its own. Read that again. Any single cable can hold the entire elevator by itself. All of them would have to fail simultaneously for the car to lose cable support. The odds of this happening are so vanishingly small that elevator engineers compare it to being struck by lightning while winning the lottery. The cables are inspected regularly, replaced on a schedule, and monitored for wear. In the entire modern history of elevators, a simultaneous failure of all cables on a properly maintained system has essentially never caused a fatal freefall. Not once. But let's say the impossible happens. Let's say, through some catastrophic event, every cable snaps at the same moment. The car is on the 30th floor, fully loaded, and suddenly there is nothing above it but empty air and frayed steel. What happens in the next second is not what you think. The car does not plummet. It begins to move downward, yes, but almost immediately a mechanical safety system activates that has been sitting dormant in the elevator since the day it was installed, waiting for exactly this moment. These are called the safety brakes, and they are the single most important invention in the history of vertical transportation. They work on a principle so simple and so reliable that the core design hasn't changed in over 170 years. Here's how they work. Attached to the elevator car is a device called a governor, a spinning flywheel mechanism connected to the car by its own separate rope. As the car moves, the governor spins. If the car exceeds a preset speed, roughly 1.5 times its normal operating speed, centrifugal force pushes weighted arms outward inside the governor, triggering a mechanical linkage that activates the safety brakes mounted on the car's frame. These brakes are wedge-shaped metal jaws that grip the steel guide rails on either side of the shaft. The faster the car moves, the harder the brakes squeeze. The car decelerates and stops, pinched against the rails by mechanical force alone. No electricity needed. No computer needed. No human needed. Pure physics. This system was invented by Elisha Otis in 1854, and the way he demonstrated it is one of the greatest marketing stunts in industrial history. At the Crystal Palace exhibition in New York, Otis stood on an open elevator platform hoisted high above a gasping crowd of onlookers. He held an axe. He ordered his assistant to cut the only rope holding the platform. The rope snapped. The audience screamed. The platform dropped a few inches and stopped dead. Otis spread his arms and declared, "All safe, gentlemen, all safe." That single demonstration launched the modern elevator industry and, by extension, made skyscrapers possible. Without a reliable safety brake, no one would enter a vertical box suspended by ropes. Without elevators, buildings above 6 stories would be impractical. Without tall buildings, modern cities as we know them wouldn't exist. The history of the skyline is the history of one man standing on a platform and letting someone cut the rope. But the safety brake is just the first layer. Modern elevators are engineered with redundancy stacked on top of redundancy. Beyond the governor-activated brakes, there are additional systems designed to protect against scenarios that Otis never imagined. The first is the counterweight. Every traction elevator has a heavy counterweight connected to the opposite end of the cables, balanced to roughly equal the weight of the car plus 40% of its maximum passenger load. If the cables somehow vanished, the counterweight would also be released, and both the car and the counterweight would be subject to their own safety brakes independently. The system is mirrored. Each side protects the other. The second is the buffer at the bottom of the shaft. Even if every other system failed, the very bottom of every elevator shaft contains a shock absorber, either a large hydraulic piston or a heavy-duty spring, designed to decelerate the car in the last few meters of travel. These buffers won't make the landing comfortable, but they will reduce the impact force enough to make it survivable. They are the very last line of defense, the airbag at the bottom of the building. The third is the electromagnetic brake on the motor itself. When power is supplied, the brake releases and allows the motor to turn. When power is cut, whether deliberately or through a failure, the brake engages automatically and locks the motor shaft. This means that even a total power failure doesn't release the elevator, it locks it in place. The elevator's default state is stopped, not moving. Movement requires active energy. Stillness is free. So what would actually happen to a person inside a car if, through some impossible cascade of failures, the car actually did fall? This scenario is so unlikely that the best data comes from physics calculations rather than real events. But the math is clear, and it contradicts the most popular survival myth on the internet. You've probably heard the advice: if an elevator is falling, jump just before it hits the bottom. This is useless. A falling elevator would reach speeds of over 100 kilometers per hour. Your legs can generate a jump of perhaps 3 kilometers per hour. The difference is meaningless. You'd hit the floor at functionally the same speed whether you jumped or not. The physics don't lie, and your knees are not rocket engines. The actual best position, according to engineers and emergency physicians, is to lie flat on your back on the floor of the car. This distributes the impact force across the largest possible surface area of your body, reducing the pressure on any single point. Lying down also protects your spine from compression fractures that would be nearly certain in a standing position. It's counterintuitive. Every instinct tells you to stand, to brace, to hold on to something. The science says, get down and spread out. But here's the reassuring truth buried under all this worst-case analysis. You will almost certainly never need any of this information. Elevators are statistically one of the safest forms of transportation ever invented. In the United States, elevators make roughly 18 billion passenger trips per year. The average number of annual fatalities is about 27, and the overwhelming majority of those are maintenance workers, not passengers. You are more likely to die climbing the stairs than riding the elevator. The stairs don't have governors, safety brakes, buffers, counterweights, or electromagnetic locks. The elevator has all of them. The fear of elevator freefall is hardwired, ancient, primal. Humans spent millions of years on the ground, and the fear of falling is one of the only fears we're born with, present in infants before they can walk. Stepping into a box that lifts you vertically into the sky triggers something deep and irrational that no amount of engineering can fully silence. But engineering answered the fear anyway, not by arguing with it, not by explaining the statistics, but by building a mechanical guarantee into every elevator on Earth that says, even if everything goes wrong, even if every cable snaps and every motor fails, the box will not fall. The brakes will catch. The physics will hold. All safe, ladies and gentlemen. All safe. But elevators aren't even the most surprising everyday system hiding a secret most people never learn. Right now, in a pharmacy near you, there are shelves full of medications that expired yesterday. Pills, syrups, inhalers, and injections that were worth thousands of dollars 24 hours ago and are now, legally, worth nothing. But most of those drugs still work perfectly. So where do they go? Why can't you have them? And what happens to the billions of dollars in medicine that gets pulled from shelves and destroyed every year, even though it could still save lives? That story is next, and if you don't want to miss it, you know what to do.